Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into Capitol View, a weekly webcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com. I'm your host, Brad Locke, joined as always by Capitol Bureau Chief Bobby Harrison. Bobby, how you doing on this Monday, the 15th of August?
Hey, Brad, is it as wet up there as it is down here?
It's been wet pretty much the past week, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when my lawn's going to get mowed again, but I guess we need the rain at some point. Bobby, kind of a slow week down there, hadn't it been?
Yeah, there. It was a kind of slow week plus a few things going on, but overall it was generally a week in the middle of August.
Well, you need a slow week now and then, Bobby, I would think. A few things we do want to talk about, though, and not all of them necessarily political or legislator related, but you did write a couple of stories about things that were going on, or like, for instance, the new poet laureate has been named. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that book festival that draws in a bunch of big name authors from around the state. First, though, Bobby, we do want to talk about something that has to do with state government, and that is this report, this Moody's Investor Service report. They've lowered Mississippi's credit outlook to negative. That's a bad thing, Bobby. What does that mean to people like me who don't follow that stuff normally?
Well, it says something about the general overall economy of the state, but in realistic terms, what it means is when the state borrows money, it doesn't get as good a deal. Just like when you or I go to get to buy a car and take out a car loan, the percentage, the interest we paid is based on our credit rating, and right now the investment firms or the rating agencies that do this are saying Mississippi's has a negative outlook, which means that we may not get as good a deal when we borrow money to bond construction on the university campuses, or to, like, the bond package this past year had lights on 45 at Saltillo. So when they financed borrowed bonds to sell bonds to put those lights up, they may not get as good a deal on the interest rate.
Well, now as to the reason for this, Bobby, and this is from the story we had last week from Mississippi Today. Phil Bryant, the governor, says that the main reason this has happened is because for the past 4 years, Mississippi's budget has increased 24%. He said that cannot continue, and he said it should be a wake-up call for those whose only solution to every problem is to spend more money on it. And then, according to Moody's, there are 3 conditions that cause this negative outlook: dipping into the rainy day fund 3 times this past year, waiving the 2% set aside in the budget for the past 3 years, and then the state's just above average debt levels. So it sounds like maybe Phil Bryant says it's one thing, Moody says it's another.
Well, those are essentially the same things. I mean,
Right.
you spend more money. You have to dip into the rainy day fund to pay for it, especially if you're cutting taxes and cutting the amount of revenue coming into the state. So it's all kind of connected.
Right.
And, I would point out, with all due respect to Governor Bryant, he signed every one of those budget bills that spent that money. He's been governor during that whole time, signing the budget bills. So there's that shouldn't be lost in this conversation.
Right. I mean, with the, like you mentioned, dipping into the rainy day fund. I mean, the increasing your spending, I guess that's basically is what it's about. But like you said, he kind of signed off on it. But then you got the tax cuts, and that just kind of, to a lot of people, complicates the issue. I know they got these working groups that are going to try to figure out what to do about that. Bobby, how could they factor into this, what they're doing?
Well, I mean, it's all related. The working groups are supposed to get started in early September. They've set some dates now, and so we'll see what comes of those. But they're looking at the tax structure of the state after they passed the largest tax cut in the history of the state. So that's still, it seems like a backwards way to do it. You seem like you would look at the tax structure before you pass massive tax cuts, but they're doing it the opposite. They're passing the big tax cuts, and now they're going to look at the tax structure. So we'll see where it all plays out. But and the credit ratings, I mean, all this is all the cuts that's going on right now to numerous agencies, whether it's the Forestry Commission, the Mental Health Department of the Health, armories being closed. All this is kind of related, and
Right.
It's all coming to fruition. So we'll see what the final outcome is in the coming months.
Well, let's talk about something a little more uplifting, I guess, Bobby. You had a new poet laureate named last week, Beth Ann Finley, an instructor at Ole Miss. Actually, has been the director of the English Masters of Fine Arts program. She is the new poet laureate. Bobby, it's a prestigious position, maybe not the one people pay as much attention to as they used to. I don't know, but seems like a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, yeah, and she was honored to be chosen. She was chosen by Governor Bryant from the uh, uh, the Arts Commission puts together a panel to make recommendations to Governor Bryant, and they made three recommendations, and she was the one who was selected to be the new poet laureate. And she's very distinguished. She's written several books, most of them books of poetry, but she's done some other stuff too. And she's received various national and state awards. And she says she's gonna travel the state promoting poetry, and and Mississippi has a strong literary tradition, whether it's you know songwriters, poets, playwrights. Mississippi has
Sure.
a novelist, so she's gonna point that out, and it's something that we all Mississippians should be proud of, is our literary tradition.
And you know what's funny is she grew up in Chicago. I think she's from New Jersey. She came down here to be like a writer in residence several years ago. Had planned on staying just for one school year. And now I guess it's been what, 15, 16 years later, she's still here. She's kind of fallen in love with
Yeah,
it in the area. In fact, I like this little note you made here near the top of the story. She owns 5 burial plots in Oxford. So I guess she plans on being here a while.
yeah, yeah. She pointed out they were close to William Faulkner and Barry Hannah, two sort of icons of Mississippi literary tradition. So, and just point of reference, it wasn't she didn't even come down to be writer in residence. It was her husband who came
That's
down
right. It was her husband.
for that. He's a crime fiction writer, and had some success, and he was, and they already had a house, and they were going to go back to in Illinois, and she had a job lined up, but they ended up not going back. They ended up staying in Mississippi.
Well, no, she'll travel around the state, like you said, trying to just make poetry more accessible and just more acceptable to Mississippians. I mean, poetry is an art form, a writing form that used to be more popular, I guess, several decades ago. I love poetry and enjoy writing it sometimes, and hopefully she can have some success with that. And it's a non-paid position, right, Bobby? But she'll have
Right.
expenses covered, and
I mean, her expenses. I mean, she'll get some expense money for her travels around the state, and then that can be paid in different ways. Like she may go to some type of festival in Hattiesburg, and they might have some grant money that could help her with her expenses. So I mean, there'll be different ways that she'll be reimbursed, but it's not something she's going to get rich on by. There's
yeah.
of course, Guy Clark. I mean, you might know him. He was a Texas songwriter, real
I
good
know the
one.
name.
He wrote a song about how poets were there's no money in poetry. So
Maybe in songwriting, which is a form of poetry, but yeah.
yeah,
Poetry,
that's right.
well,
That's right.
not much money to be made these days. So she'll serve a 4-year term. Just giving people a little history. We've had a poet laureate, I guess, since 1963. It used to be a lifetime appointment, and then a few years ago, Bobby, they made it I guess, a 4-year term.
Yeah,
And
and start the process for the
she succeeds
work.
Natasha Trethewey.
Yeah, who was actually not too long. She's from Gulfport. Not too long after she became the state poet laureate, she was selected through the national process as the national poet laureate. So she served in dual roles for pretty much the past 4 years, which is also an honor for Mississippi.
Oh, no doubt. So Beth Ann Finley, she is the state's 5th poet laureate. So good deal for her. And speaking of literary accomplishments, Bobby, we had that book festival. I guess the 2nd annual book festival last week in Jackson had a lot of very notable Mississippi authors.
No, it's this coming week, Brad.
Oh, it's this coming week. I'm sorry, I haven't had it yet.
This coming Saturday.
That's right. You advanced it last week, is what
Yeah.
it was. So it's coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
It seemed to go very well last year, didn't it?
Yeah, about 3,500 people showed up last year, and they're expecting even a bigger crowd this year. They've got like 150 riders, including some Pulitzer Prize winners, and they just expecting it to be a big event honoring that people have an opportunity to learn about the state's literary tradition, and also learn about different topics that will be discussed. It'll be at the Capitol, and there'll be tours of the Capitol, the Smithsonian, and the Library of Congress will have exhibits set up that you normally have to go to Washington D.C. to see, and there'll also be some events at adjacent Galloway United Methodist Church. It's all connected with this book fair.
Well, that's a cool deal, Bobby. I wish I could make it down there, to be honest. And we talked about that Moody's credit report, and I know the Mississippi economy is not doing great, and there's a lot of things bad, I guess, that you could say about Mississippi when you look at where we rank. But you know what? It's nice to see something like this to remind us that at least when it comes to the arts, Bobby, I think we do pretty well stacked up against the rest of the country. So that's nice to talk about that for a change instead of all the gloom and doom of our economic
arts
situation.
And sports we do well in.
Yeah, arts and sports. Okay, come at us. Okay, we can hang with you at least on those fronts. And that's hey, right. Culturally, second to none, in my opinion. Yeah. But I'm a Mississippian, Bobby. I'm biased.
That's right. But you can make a good argument.
Exactly, Bobby. Well, that's all the time we got for today on Capitol View. Appreciate y'all tuning in. You can watch us again every Monday about 2:00. And if you miss it or just want to watch the replay, just check it out at djournal.com. Follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyHarrison9. I'm on Twitter at Brad Locke. We'll be back next week. Be plenty to talk about, I'm sure, Bobby. Maybe things will pick up this week, but if not, we'll still find something to talk about. So appreciate your time, sir.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Have a good day.
You too, and y'all have a good week. See you next time.
Yeah.